My story started 8 years ago when I turned 18 and became homeless. I grew up in a household with a lot of physical and verbal abuse. Both of my parents drank a lot. So when my dad wasn't hurting me and my siblings, he was either drinking or losing his job. Despite their toxic relationship, my dad stayed because my mom qualified for Section 8 housing. My mom didn't care when my dad hurt us, as they somehow fit together in their messed up way. So once I turned 18 and finished high school, I left home and traveled across the country. I went from California to Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and finally South Carolina. It wasn't a direct trip, and it took me 2 full years before I ended up in South Carolina. During this period, I didn't work and relied on asking for money to get by. My brother and sister might have missed me, but my mom and dad didn't seem to care. During my trip, I met a lot of mean people, but also some nice ones. I decided to stay in South Carolina because I found a job working nights as a cashier at CVS Pharmacy. Back then, I didn't have a home, so I used the gym to take showers and carried all my stuff in my backpack. Things changed a lot for me when I met a girl named Carol. I was 20 years old and she was 19 when we met. Carol had been working at CVS for about 6 months before I started. During one of our breaks, we talked, and I told her about my tough time with my parents. She shared that her dad had been abusive too, but didn't go into details. After I told her my story, she started having lunch with me often. One day, she asked me to join her for a weekend event, which ended up being like a date. During that time, I finally let her know I was homeless. She was really kind and invited me to her apartment, where she lived with a female roommate. I stayed the night at her place and eventually moved in, but her roommate wasn't happy, so we decided to get our own 1-bedroom apartment. We became a couple and everything was good between us. We didn't argue much, and she didn't seem like someone who enjoyed fighting. The only issue we faced was her being sad a lot and having sudden mood changes. I felt like she was hiding something from me because she avoided talking about her family. Then, about 2 months after we started living together, she finally shared about her own childhood. She told me that her mom passed away during childbirth when she was young, and her dad started abusing her. Her dad was only 17 years older than her, so her parents had her at a young age. He was an alcoholic, just like my parents, and committed petty crimes that got him arrested. So growing up, my girlfriend had to stay with relatives that weren't any better than her. I felt really bad for my girlfriend when she told me this, especially because she had never shared it with anyone else before. Her dad had been in jail for 3 years already, and he had 2 more years to go. She hadn't gone to visit him because of how he treated her. She told me she wanted to find someone stable in her life, and that's what I became for her. Back then, I didn't really know about therapy, but looking back, she really could have used one. I was able to support her a bit because I was a good listener and never judged her. I could relate because I had a parent who was abusive and neglectful, although they didn't actually abuse me. My situation involved a violent father and a mother who saw me as a way to get housing assistance and food stamps. Moving ahead, about 4 months into our relationship, my girlfriend mentioned that something was bothering her and she needed to share it with me. She then revealed that she had visited her father in prison. I was puzzled and asked her why. After all, wasn't he the same person who had taken advantage of her innocence and abused her when she was young? She said yes, but she wanted closure and needed to confront the demon she saw as her father. I kind of understood where she was coming from, because I too would like an opportunity to confront my physically abusive father. I comforted her and wished she had brought me along with her. She told me that she wanted to do it alone, and that it was a battle she had to fight alone. I told her that I was there for her in case she needed me. We made a commitment to ourselves never to be like our parents and make something out of our lives. I enrolled in a trade school to become an AC repair technician, and she wanted to become a radiologist. Close to 2 years into our relationship, I was doing my apprenticeship as a technician when she got pregnant. I was working strange hours at the time, so I wasn't home when she was home. During her pregnancy, her dad was released from prison, and the first place he went to was to visit my girlfriend at our apartment. He came when I wasn't home, and my girlfriend didn't tell me about it. You wouldn't believe how I found out about his visit. Since my girlfriend was pregnant and going to school, she had to cut her hours at work. So I was the primary breadwinner of the household. Then I started noticing that my girlfriend would not pay the bill when she was supposed to, and it would get late. She would then take money twice. This happened multiple times until I confronted her. That's when she began to cry and told me that her dad had been released from prison. He was asking her for money to help him start over and not do bad things again. She didn't want him to get into trouble, so she started giving him money, believing he would give it back. I was really angry. I couldn't believe that after everything he had done to her, he had the courage to come to my place and ask her for money. I thought my girlfriend was too trusting, so I decided to keep her out of my bank account and started paying the bills on my own. I told her not to give her dad anything, but if he tries to trick her, and she still feels she has to help, she should use her own money, not mine. The first time I saw him was after our son was born. He walked into the room to visit my girlfriend and the baby. I didn't want things to be uncomfortable, so I didn't confront him like I really wanted to. I didn't act friendly or pretend to like him because that's not who I am. I felt disgusted that a man could treat his own daughter that way. After he left, I talked sternly to my girlfriend. I told her that I never wanted to see her dad again. Once the baby arrived, we began to argue more, mostly because of her dad and the fact that she quit school. She believed she didn't need education since I was earning well, and the money she earned from work didn't go towards our home expenses. I started suspecting she might be sending it to her dad. I would ask her if her dad truly abused her, because her behavior didn't match what I expected from someone who had gone through that. She would say that I was attempting to control her. And no matter what her dad did to her, he was the only family she feared cared for her. This hurt me because it seemed like she was ignoring our relationship and our son. One time I had to speak with her dad directly to stop him from coming to my house and asking my girlfriend for money. He even tried to intimidate me, thinking I was easily intimidated because he had been in prison. But I didn't back down. I stood firm. I confronted him about the way he treated his daughter, and he denied everything, claiming that it was all untrue and never happened. When I shared what her dad had said, she got really upset. She said it was meant to be a private conversation and accused me of using something she had trusted me with against her. Our relationship took a bad turn from there. We weren't used to arguing or being mean to each other, but when her dad became involved, things changed, and our relationship became unhealthy. Her dad finally got an apartment and was trying to rebuild his life to earn his daughter's respect. She looked up to him for this, which frustrated me. I couldn't grasp why she admired him for doing what any regular person should do. I suppose she had low expectations. Once we had a fight, and she was mad at me. She took our son to his place. So I went to her dad's apartment and got really angry. She returned with our son the next day, and I told her not to take him to her dad's house again. I started to suspect there was something going on between my girlfriend and her father when the neighbor told me that my girlfriend's car only comes home a few hours before mine, which means that she was spending all her time somewhere else. Moreover, our bedroom life became non-existent, as we were always arguing and drifting apart. Then, one Thanksgiving of 2015, I flew back to California to visit my parents and siblings with my son. My son was a year old by then, and my girlfriend didn't come with me. Our relationship was so toxic at this moment that we were arguing all the time, so it wouldn't have been a pleasant journey if I had brought her. It was a good trip because my younger brother and sister were going down the wrong path, just like our parents. And I told them they could come and stay with me after Christmas. Maybe they would like South Carolina and have a second chance in life. After the trip, when I returned home with my son to South Carolina, my girlfriend was not home. She left me a letter saying that she was traveling with her dad. I called her, but she didn't answer. I was surprised that a mother would abandon her own son. It was not clear to me that my girlfriend and her dad were romantically involved. I went to court, but was unsuccessful in having her parental rights terminated. After 2 months of her disappearance, she reappeared. After she came back, she wanted to come back into our life, blaming me for her disappearance, saying that she was trying to prove a point to me, as she was upset that I went to California without her. I asked her if she was having a romantic relationship with her father, and she claimed that it was none of my business. After she came back, I told her that our relationship was over, and I wanted her to leave my apartment, and she's not taking our child with her. We went to court, and despite all the evidence I brought showing that she abandoned our child and she's having an ex-wife relationship with her father, the court said it wasn't enough and gave us joint custody of our son. To my horror, my son had to stay with her and her father 50% of the time. Fast forward 4 months later, my girlfriend was pregnant, and I was sure it was her father's because I knew she wasn't dating anyone else at the time, and she lived alone with her father. I hired a lawyer to view the case against her because I can't allow my son to grow up in that filth. Around this period, my brother and sister moved in with me. They were getting their life back together and were also helping me raise my son. So, he had people that loved him to stay with instead of my ex and her disgusting father. After my ex-girlfriend gave birth to a child she made with her dad, we gathered enough evidence to prove that the child was a product of incest, and my ex-girlfriend and her father were arrested and charged with incest after the state conducted a DNA test. Luckily, or unluckily, I was informed that the child eventually passed away at the medical facility in Charleston due to complications linked to incest. I was able to present the evidence in court, and my ex-girlfriend and her father were found guilty of incest. The police arrested in court and successfully secured sole custody of my son this time. Once the court case concluded, the father received a sentence of under 1 year in prison, and my ex-girlfriend was fined less than $1,000 without facing jail time. Up to now, she hasn't ceased her attempts to get involved in our son's life. At times, I question whether I am being selfish by restricting her access to him, but I believe I am safeguarding his well-being. While she often appears to be a capable mother, the fact that she abandoned our son remains a significant concern. However, my worry is that when her father is released, she might be influenced by him again, and I want to ensure that my son does not grow up in such an environment. My goal is to provide him with a better life than what I experienced. She is making every effort to persuade me that her relationship with her father is no longer inappropriate, and she is now dating someone else. Despite this, she has taken me to court multiple times in an attempt to regain custody, but her efforts have not succeeded. Thank you for staying until the end of this video. Please support my channel by hitting the thumbs up and subscribing if you haven't already. Now, let's get some reactions in the comment section. Thank you and have a wonderful day.